My name is James Smith. I'll be discussing the works of W.D. Gant, a couple methodologies that he proposed. I work for Catapult Research. We're going to discuss three techniques today. One called 7 times the base. The next one, the division of the ranges, and the square of 9. So let's start with 7 times the base. If you're familiar with Gant, you know that he divided each swing move into 8 equal increments. So anytime you get a swing, you can divide it into those divisions of the range, the most important of which is the 50% retracement. But each one, the 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and so on, they're all important. They're all worth looking at. He believed so strongly in this technique that he believed you could use it to forecast future swings. So in this case, we start back on May 25th, 2010. The first few days the market goes up. It establishes a high on May 28th. That is the base. The first increment, the first swing move up, is by definition 1/8 of the entire swing move. If we know that to be true, we add the base to 7 times the base. So this box here represents 7 times that initial base. Added to the base gets you a price target of 337. So we're looking at a future move which we could have forecasted all the way back down here, and now we're getting very close to it. We're at 329. We just have less than 10 points to go to get to 337. So if this methodology is correct, we should be getting close to at least some sort of top here. Let's try the next chart. If we look at this larger, this is a weekly chart. We're taking a larger swing move, and we're applying the methodology that I just mentioned, the divisions of the range. We're looking to divide this huge swing from July 4th, 2008 high to the low that came on February 27th, 2009 low. You can divide that into 8 increments. So the green lines represent 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8 of that move. So half of it would be what I'd call 4/8 or 50% retracement. Turns out we're getting very close to that. Now here's an interesting thing. The figure that you see here, 337, if that sounds familiar, it should, because 7 times the base, that prior chart we just looked at, that was our projected high. And one of the theories of Gant is that if you get a major swing move down, the first time you come up against the 50% retracement, you will have difficulty in getting above it. So not only do we have a projected high using 7 times the base, but we have a 50% retracement also at 337. One more thing. Gant believed what everyone's familiar with Gant is the Gant line. You take some increment. In this case, we're looking at a weekly chart. A 1/1 by definition would be moving 1 point down from high for every 1 week that you move across. So over time, you can get all the way down here to 344. If that's next week's target. The week after, it'd be 342, and so on. 343, 342, you're doing 1 point per week. If I were drawing a 1/1 up, you'd move up 1 point per week. But in this case, we're looking at this 1/1 drawn down from high. Interestingly enough, it's very close to the 50% mark. Next week, it'll be at 344, which is very close to 337. So we have a range. We don't have to be precise, but we have a range that we believe will be a probable high for this market. You're looking at 337 to 344, somewhere in there. Maybe next week you'll hit it. The next technique is called square of 9. Now square of 9 is, a lot of people are familiar with it, but in case you're not, let me show you what it looks like. Gant started You put the number 1 in the center of the circle. You do counterclockwise movements out, and you can see you're just going out, out, out. And each time you go out, you do 360 degrees. So if one revolution, you're out to 4, 15, 34, 61, 96. Depending on where you start in the circle, you can start here and go all the way around and come down here, and you'd be 360 degrees from that point. That's what you'd call a dynamic use of the square of the range. And let me bring us back. That's what we're doing here. We're starting with some number, 200. We're moving degrees of movement around that circle. So the first move up here, notice that this thing stopped at 180 degrees, which is 229. If you go up 180 degrees, you come back down, you find support on the 90-degree line at 214. Then you take off again, you come back, you find support. What was resistance is now support. You go up, you find resistance at the 45-degree line of a new circle. You come down, you do a lot of noise, you come back up, boom, 180-degree line again at 294. Come back down, you find support at the 360-degree line. So maybe you get the idea that this market is responding to the square of 9. The factor we're using is 1 point. We're looking at the daily time frame. We're looking at the daily square, the dynamic square of 9. So if we go from here, we found a low here, we can actually forecast to some extent, because we've been doing these 180-degree cycles. There's a good chance that we might stop right here at 329, which is 360 degrees above this point at 294. I should say it's 180 degrees. This is 180 degrees. Another 180 will take you to 360. So halfway around the circle. Now we have 4 targets. Well, 3 targets. We've got 329 on the square of 9. We've got 337, if you recall. 337 using 7 times the base. We also have 337 as a 50% retracement. And we have 344 next week. That changes each week. It's going to drop a point. But 344 next week would be a possible target, upside target for this rally. Any one of these targets could be the high for this move. We don't know with absolute certainty which one will give us the high. But we do have a range of targets. That's the important thing. They're all pretty well close to each other. And that's what we look for. We're looking not for total precision. We're just looking for an area where potentially the CRB will find difficulty. It'll find a high. You've been listening to James Smith at Catapult Research. If you'd like to visit my website, thank you.